Welcome back. This is Professor Rubio, and the next assignment is on 2-point perspective. So we will be learning what that is. So the first thing you want to do is draw a horizon line, which I just did. And you want to set up this system very lightly with the pencil before you get started. So first step, draw a horizon line. The second step is going to be to draw your vanishing point on one side and another vanishing point on the other side. Alright, so those are the 2 points that make it 2-point perspective. And we're going to draw a city in this assignment. So the first thing you want to do is draw a corner or a line. This one crosses the horizon line. And what you want to do is point everything on that side of the line points to that vanishing point, and everything on the other side of the line to the other vanishing point. On this assignment, you want to make sure you use a ruler. That way it's straight. Alright, so everything on that side of the line goes to that vanishing point. And from you want to decide how wide you want your building, and so I'm putting my ruler here, and that's how wide I want it, and it's equally parallel to that first line. So you draw your line, and those lines are straight up and down together, they're not wonky, and you want to cut off the edge of the other building doing the same thing. So the distance from the edge to the corner of the building is equal on the top and bottom, so they are parallel. Alright, so if you look, you can kind of see the building. We can see the face that I'm erasing right now, and on the other side you see the other face. Okay, by face I mean the faces of the building that you can see. So if you can imagine, we're looking at the corner of the building and 2 sides of it. Alright, that's the corner. And what you want to do is just darken all the edges. Make sure you point your ruler at that vanishing point. Erase what you need to. Alright, so now you kind of see it, and you can shade one side just to give yourself a light source, which I prefer, and I'm going to require it for this assignment, and that's going to make it look like a box, a 3-dimensional object. So we're going to make some patterns, windows, and I'm going to show you how they can be any kind you want. So everything on this side of the building, the tops and bottoms still follow and point to the vanishing point. Okay, so the tops and bottoms of those big windows point to that vanishing point, and then I just connect them to make them a window. And this is a huge window. This is a fake building, but you gotta make sure everything's straight. Use a ruler, take your time. If something's wrong, just correct it and then erase. Don't go with your first line, get you in trouble. Alright. So I have windows here, and the tops and bottoms point to the vanishing point on my right. Alright, I'm going to make one more up here, and the bottom of that big sign that I'm going to make points to the vanishing point. See that? The edge is still up and down parallel, and the top points to that vanishing point too. Alright, so I'm gonna write in there something like bank, and I'm not worried about my letters being accurate for this assignment. I want you to focus on making buildings in 2-point perspective. Okay, I'm going to draw another building, and it's going to be right next to this one, but I want to line it up with a straight line in the other building just to make sure it's down. And there's my first corner, and then on this face of the building the line points down to the vanishing point. And notice how I just stopped where I wanted it to stop. I don't have to draw it all the way through. Same thing in that direction, and just stop. And I'm cutting it off right about there. It's parallel to that line, even though it looks kind of crooked on camera. And I draw my line, and my bottom line's already drawn out from that other building, so I'm going to go ahead and use that as the floor and then cut off my building on the other side. Okay, so this building is behind the bank, if you can see that. Let me erase. Now I'm going to draw the bottom of this building, and it points to that vanishing point. And now you can kind of see the bottom of that building, and this bank is in front of it, so that line doesn't go all the way through. And I'm just going to shade it to show that it has the same shadow as the other building. Take your time when you're shading these. I'm going kind of fast for demonstration purposes. So our goal is going to be to draw 4 buildings on a corner. And I'm going to show you how to draw some windows, different kind of windows. So we saw one kind, now this is another kind of window. You're just going to draw these lines parallel to one another. Alright, and then the cross section, that horizontal line on the building is going to point to the vanishing point on its side, on that side. So they all have to point to that vanishing point. See how the angle changes? And that's going to give the illusion of a 3-dimensional space, because it looks like those lines are going off into the distance. Alright, so that's our grid on that side, a grid of windows. And on the other side, I'm going to match it up. So we point to the other vanishing point and just start where the other line is. You want to make sure you use your ruler, not type by hand. That is gonna make everything look wonky. If you're advanced, do something really impressive, go all out, be creative. On these vertical lines, they get smaller as they go off into the distance, meaning they get closer together. So you're gonna have to eyeball that and decide, like, okay, how close do they get together to make it look like there's somewhat of a distance thing going on. Because as things go off into the distance, they get smaller. So we got one there, and that'll count if you want to make one of those for one of your buildings. Alright, I'm going to do something crazy, draw a huge building across the street. Alright, so it's very tall and skinny. Same system. Make sure you draw your horizon line very light, or else you'll have my problem here where it's kind of hard to erase. So same system, I point the top and bottom to that vanishing point. Alright, tops and bottom point to that vanishing point. Erase the lines that are kind of hanging off. And then the other side points to that vanishing point. So it's the same thing over and over using the same system. The only difference is you're using different lengths of line to create different buildings. So this building is really slanted at the top, and you'll get buildings that look like that in your setup, and that's okay. The top is going to be pretty gnarly, pointing to that vanishing point, but just trust the system. That's how it's supposed to look. So if it's a really tall building, those angles are going to be more drastic, more dramatic. I'm gonna make a grid here, and each line is gonna point to a vanishing point. Just one vanishing point. That way they look like they are going off into the distance. Okay, I'm switching it up here. I'm just gonna do some lines that are closer together on the edge because they're off in the distance, and then they get further apart as they come closer to us, the viewer. So it's just a weird building design. There's all types of buildings out there. Get creative, make your own. You can do a theme to where all your buildings have to do with one theme, like maybe they're all like having to do with music or your favorite movie or your favorite anime. Get creative and make your own little city block. If I wanted to draw a building back here, you first draw the corner line and then it's the same process. We're just not going to have a bottom to this building. You're pointing the tops of the buildings to their corresponding vanishing point, shading one face of the building. Make sure you erase everything inside the building. Try to stay clean. I'm going a little fast on this video. Okay, so it looks like my video got choppy, and what I did was went ahead and started another building over here. The vanishing points are all the same as the other buildings. Okay, I'm going to show you a common mistake. Make sure you pay attention to this part. I'm making lines right here that are just parallel to the top of the building, right? And I can do it quickly and it's fast, but guess what? They are not pointing to the vanishing point. If you can see down below, it's way below the horizon line, and they don't look right. That's wrong. Alright, so the way to do that is, of course, you got to erase it, but each line has to point to the vanishing point. Alright, so you line up each line inside the building to the vanishing point and where you want to draw the line. So you're adjusting your ruler every time. And you can think of it as like fanning out. And you keep adjusting, making sure every line points to the vanishing line or the vanishing point. Okay, I'm showing you how to do a brick pattern. It's kind of hard to see, but it's another pattern that you can use for this assignment. You don't have to use just windows. So go ahead and experiment with different wall patterns. I really want you to use patterns that rely on their perspective to make them. Obviously, you can do other patterns as well, but I want you to incorporate window patterns, any kind of windows that use perspective, and then brick patterns as well. So once you got your horizontal lines for the brick pattern, the vertical ones kind of just overlap each other, and you can do that throughout the building if you like. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to show you is how to do a door. And so obviously that first line is straight up and down, and since the top of the door is on this side of the building, I use that vanishing point on that side. Alright, I'm making the wall look a little bit thicker by making two lines, And then I'm using that corner there and pointing to the opposite vanishing point to make it look like there's a floor inside that building. And if I do a little bit of shading, I can make it look like there's depth within that building. Alright, so try these different things. Go around and do some lining around the windows, and what you don't want to do is freehand it, because that's going to go too quick and things are going to get wonky. So don't do that. So erase that. And use a ruler. So I'm using a ruler, I'm just lining things up, and that way everything's clean. So part of this assignment is using that tool that we had to go out and buy. We had to buy this ruler for a reason. This is that reason. So make sure that you use a ruler. If you want to do different designs on the side of the building that is not your pattern, it's just something you come up with, obviously you don't have to use a ruler, you can just have at it. But if you're making things in perspective, I want you to use a ruler. So just clean things up, and with the ruler it should look good. So what we're going to do is 4 buildings. I think I said 5 earlier, but we're going to do 4. And make sure they have patterns that use perspective. You can do a window pattern, a brick pattern, and the last part says shading. So make sure there's shading. Alright, so have fun with it. That you're clean with your lines, and if you need to rewind the video, go ahead and rewind the video. Good luck. Have fun.